Sometimes what you're carrying isn't in your arms, it's in your past. Terminal C at Red Hollow International Airport in Ohio buzzed louder than usual on that gray March morning between muffled loudspeaker announcements and the screech of suitcase wheels. Officer Thatcher Mallowan, a seasoned airport security agent, kept his eyes sharp at his side. Bishop, a Belgian Malinois with an almost supernatural nose and a restless spirit, sniffed the polished L like he was chasing something only he could sense. For 7 years Thatcher had trusted Bishop's instincts more than any partner on the force, but today something about the dog's behavior felt off. Then she appeared, a tall blonde woman moving slowly through the crowd, balancing 2 paper bags in her hands, her pregnant belly pressed against the white blouse beneath a dark navy coat, clearly in her final trimester. Her name was Marlowe Ashford, and everything about her seemed carefully constructed. Oversized sunglasses too dark for indoor lighting, flats chosen for comfort, her face calm, too calm for a place filled with hells and goodbyes. But the second Bishop laid eyes on her, everything shifted. He froze, then growled, and then he barked loud, sharp, relentless, not with aggression but with warning. Thatcher tightened the leash, trying to keep Bishop steady, but the dog's back was arched, muscles tensed for standing on end. He never reacted like this to pregnant women. Never. Marlowe didn't flinch, she didn't stop, but behind those dark glasses her eyes were locked on the dog, and there was something chilling in her stare. Not fear, not confusion, but something closer to recognition, as if she knew exactly why Bishop was barking. I need you to stop for a moment, Thatcher called out, his voice firm but respectful. Marlowe hesitated, then she took 2 more steps and collapsed. The sound of her body hitting the floor echoed like a thunderclap. The bags spilled, open papers, small bottles, a sealed envelope, and a tiny stuffed bear scattered across the cold tiles. People around her froze. Time held its breath. Hatcher dropped beside her, instantly calling for medical backup. Through his radio, Bishop wouldn't stop barking, but it wasn't aggression anymore. It was panic, like he was trying to say something no one could understand. That's when Thatcher noticed the envelope near her hand, now slightly crumpled and stained. On it, written in deliberate, shaky cursive, was a single word: sorry. This wasn't just a letter, it was a warning. And in that moment, as the distant sound of sirens began to close in, Thatcher had the sinking feeling that this woman, and whatever she was carrying, was never meant to reach this airport. But it was already too late. Some names stay buried for a reason. The paramedics arrived within minutes, but to Thatcher it felt like hours. Marlowe lay unconscious, her breathing shallow, her skin pale as the airport's tile floor. A thin trickle of sweat rolled down her temple. Bishop had finally stopped barking, but now sat glued to her side, ears low, eyes locked on her face, like he was guarding something only he could understand. As one EMT lifted her wrist to check her pulse, Thatcher noticed her left hand clutching something tightly, a necklace. But not just any necklace, it was a military tag, scratched, aged, and with a name he hadn't heard in over 2 decades. Thatcher froze. Hollis, rare. The name slammed into his chest like a punch. Memories came flooding back. Uniforms, heat, sand, and gunfire echoing in a desert far from here. Hollis was more than a name. He was someone Thatcher had tried hard to forget. The tag should have been buried years ago with its owner. What the hell was it doing in the hand of a woman he'd never seen before? Marlowe Ashford. The EMT read aloud from her ID, clipping it to the stretcher as they prepared to move her. Thatcher's mind raced. The envelope, the necklace, the name, something wasn't lining up. He picked up the sealed envelope she dropped and slipped it into his coat pocket without a word. He didn't know why. Maybe instinct, maybe guilt, maybe because whatever was inside wasn't meant to be opened by just anyone as the gurney rolled away. Bishop pulled against his leash, whining softly it wasn't his usual behavior. Thatcher knelt beside the dog, hand firm on his collar. You knew something, he whispered, didn't you? Bishop let out a low, broken whimper, one Thatcher had only heard once before the day Hollis didn't come back in the staff office. Thatcher stared at the envelope under the harsh fluorescent light. The handwriting was unmistakable. It wasn't Marlowe's, it was Hollis's, slanted, rushed, and all uppercase like he always wrote under pressure. But Hollis was dead. Kia confirmed, funeral held, coffin closed. How could this letter exist now in 2025? Thatcher sat down hard in the metal chair, the noise echoing through the empty break room. He reached into his coat and slowly, carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a single page, yellowed at the edges. His hands shook as he unfolded it. The first line read, "If you're reading this, it means I failed to keep my promise. Some ghosts don't haunt, they guide." Thatcher read the first line again, this time slower. "If you're reading this, it means I failed to keep my promise." His heart pounded against his ribs as if trying to push the truth away. The rest of the letter was written in the same frantic tone, half confession, half warning. Hollis spoke of someone he had met during their last tour in Kandahar, a woman named Lena, a civilian translator, and a secret he swore to protect until the day he died. She was carrying more than just her own past, the letter read, and I was carrying more than just gear. Thatcher remembered Lena not well. She was quiet, always in the shadows, never too close to the soldiers. But Hollis had looked at her differently now. 22 years later, a woman named Marlowe Ashford had collapsed in an airport, clutching Hollis's dog tag and carrying his letter. The math was horrifying, but it made sense. If Lena had been pregnant when Hollis died, Marlowe could be the child. But if that was true, why was she here? Why? Now his thoughts were cut short by a sharp knock at the door. Officer Dorian, Faye, Thatcher's young but sharpie partner, stepped inside with a tight expression. She woke up. Dorian said, "She's asking for you." Thatcher stood slowly, folding the letter and sliding it back into his coat pocket. The chill in his spine had nothing to do with the cold. "What's her condition?" "Stable." Confused, but she said, "Your name specifically." Thatcher didn't remember ever meeting Marlowe before today, but something about the way Bishop had reacted, and now her asking for him, it wasn't a coincidence. He followed Dorian down the sterile hallway toward the airport clinic where they'd stabilized her. The hum of the fluorescent lights above seemed louder than normal. Every step toward her door felt like walking into a chapter of his past he never wanted to reopen. He paused outside the room. Through the glass he could see her, sitting up, pale lips, dry hands fidgeting with a hospital blanket. She looked younger now, vulnerable, like someone barely holding herself together. Her eyes lifted, their gazes met, and for a second, just one, he saw Hollis in her expression, the shape of the eyes, the weight of unspoken truth. She mouthed something, not a greeting, not a name. It was a question. "Do you know who I am? You can hide a secret for decades until it looks you in the eyes." Thatcher stepped into the room, and the silence felt heavier than the air itself. Marlowe didn't speak at first. Her hands were clenched around the hospital blanket, knuckles pale. Her eyes, though they never left his, they weren't just looking at him, they were searching him, measuring something. "You knew him, didn't you?" she asked, her voice hoarse but steady. Hollis rare. She didn't say my father, and Thatcher didn't answer right away because part of him still couldn't say it out loud. "I served with him," Thatcher finally replied, his voice quiet. "We were in the same unit until the last tour." She nodded once, as if confirming something only she could see. "He wrote about you," she said, and her eyes welled with tears that didn't fall. Said you were the only man he trusted. Said if something happened to him you'd know what to do. Thatcher's throat tightened. He didn't feel worthy of that kind of trust, not after the decisions he made, not after how Hole died. Marlowe reached under her pillow and pulled out a second letter, worn, creased, almost falling apart. He wrote this to me before I was born. My mother kept it hidden my whole life, said it was too dangerous, that it would only bring pain. She handed it to him with trembling fingers. Thatcher took it, feeling the weight of it like it was lined with lead. He didn't open it. He couldn't. Not yet. I only found it after she passed. Marlowe continued, a few weeks ago, and then things started happening. People watching me, following me. Someone tried to break into my apartment. They didn't take anything, just searched as if they were looking for something specific. Her voice cracked now, and she pressed her hand against her belly instinctively. Protective. That's why I came here, to find you, to find out who he really was, and why someone still wants whatever he left behind. Thatcher sat down slowly in the chair by her bedside, the letter resting on his knee like it might catch fire at any moment. There were things Hollis never told anyone, he said, not even me, but if someone's still after his secrets, it means whatever he buried didn't stay buried. Marlowe turned her head, staring at the blank wall. And now I'm the one carrying it. Thatcher didn't correct her, because deep down they both knew she wasn't just talking about the baby. Some things are stolen to protect the world, others to protect a soul. That night Thatcher sat alone in his apartment, the letter from Marlowe still unopened on the table in front of him. The lamp cast a dull yellow light over the edges of the paper, making the words, "To my daughter if I'm gone," look even heavier. Bishop lay at his feet, ears twitching, eyes half open, alert. Even in rest the air felt thick with memory and guilt. There were things Thatcher remembered from that final mission with Hollis, things no one else was supposed to know, things that had haunted his sleep for over 20 years. He finally opened the letter. Hollis's handwriting, shaky and rushed, spilled across the page. Like a man trying to outrun time, he spoke of government files, hidden documents, and a flash drive taken during a covert recovery operation, one that wasn't in any official report. They told us we found weapons, the letter read, but what I saw wasn't designed for the battlefield. It was information, personal names, coordinates, and something else. Something they were willing to kill for. Thatcher's stomach dropped. He remembered that mission the night Hollis disappeared for nearly 4 hours and came back with blood on his shirt and fear in his eyes. He'd never explained, never told anyone what he'd done, just handed off a sealed satchel to someone from Langley and pretended it never happened until now that satchel's contents had likely never reached its destination, or worse, it had, and someone wanted it back. A knock on the door snapped him out of his spiral. 3 sharp raps, not random, not hesitant. Bishop stood in a flash, growling low. Thatcher approached the door cautiously, gun at his side. He opened it just enough to see the hallway empty, but something was taped to the door, a photo, grainy black and white. It showed Marin standing at a bus stop, visibly pregnant. On the back, a single typed message: "You're not the only one who got the letter." Thatcher's blood went cold. It wasn't just about Marlowe anymore. Someone else out there had received the same warning, the same knowledge, and they were watching her, which meant she wasn't safe. Not in the airport, not in the clinic, not anywhere. He turned back to Bishop. "Get your vest," he muttered. "We going back." Whatever Hollis had stolen, Marlowe was now the key to finding it, and someone out there wanted her silenced before she realized it. Sometimes your arrival was predicted long before you packed your bags. By the time Thatcher arrived back at the airport clinic, it was just past midnight. The halls were quiet, most travelers long gone, replaced by janitors and overnight staff who barely glanced at him, but something in the air felt wrong. Bishop moved ahead of him with purpose, nose twitching, ears forward. The clinic doors were unlocked. That alone was a red flag. Security never left those rooms open after hours. He reached for his badge, pushing the door slowly. The lights were off, no nurse at the desk, and Marlowe's room empty. Her blanket lay folded on the chair. A plastic cup of water still sat untouched on the nightstand. Thatcher's got twisted. She wouldn't have left without telling someone, not after the conversation they had, not unless he turned to Bishop. The dog was locked in on something, the air vent sniffing furiously. Then he growled, deep angry. Someone had been there recently, Ly, and whoever it was, they didn't want Marlowe to stay. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number. He answered. No one spoke for 3 seconds. Then a voice, distorted male, calculated, she's safer with us than with you, Officer Mulligan. Stay out of this. You've already failed her father. Don't fail her too. The line went dead. Thatcher stood frozen, his hands clenched around the phone. The room around him felt colder now. Whoever had taken her knew who he was, knew about Hollis, knew about the past, and they weren't some street-level thugs. This was coordinated, precise, planned. He replayed the message in his mind. You already failed her father. The guilt dug deeper now, but the anger was stronger. He hadn't been able to save Hollis, but he wouldn't lose Marlowe too. Back at Security HQ, Thatcher pulled the footage from the clinic hallway, and there it was, 11:46 p.m. 2 men dressed as paramedics, pushing a gurney, come professional. Marlowe unconscious, strapped in, no struggle. They even nodded at the night staff. Fake credentials, real uniforms, and gone in less than 90 seconds. He paused. The screen zoomed in. A patch on the gurney, bag barely visible. Ryan, a name from a past he'd hoped was buried, a name tied to operations he was ordered never to speak of. Thatcher stared at the screen, jaw clenched, heart racing. They hadn't just predicted she'd come. They were waiting for her. Some files are never meant to be opened unless you're the one they buried them for. Thatcher sat in the dim light of his kitchen, a steaming mug of black coffee untouched. In front of him, Bishop lay by the door, alert, but still the name RAON echoed through his mind like a war rum. That was no ordinary group. RAON had been a black cell, a shadow operation that technically didn't exist on paper, born out of a post-9/11 intel initiative, dissolved publicly in 2011 but rumored to still operate under deep cover. Hollis had hinted at them once in whispers during a patrol in Helmand. They don't extract people, Hollis had said. They erase them. Thatcher needed intel, and he knew only one person crazy enough to still keep an off-grid archive of declassified dirt. Albie Crane, a conspiracy theory junkie and former NSA analyst who'd gone rogue years ago. He lived off the grid in an old trailer in the hills outside Columbus. Thatcher hadn't seen him in over a decade, but if anyone still had something on RAAON, it'd be Albie. Driving through the night, Thatcher kept replaying the footage in his head, the calm precision of the imposter medics, the badge, the message. They weren't improvising, they were executing a plan that had probably been in place for years. If Hollis left behind something powerful enough to wake up Aura again, it had to be more than just a list of names. It had to be proof of something they'd kill to keep hidden. AL's trailer looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. Solar panels, wires hanging from satellite dishes, and a sign on the door that read, "Smile, you're already compromised." When Albie opened the door, barefoot and wearing a t-shirt that said, "I don't trust me either," he didn't even flinch at the sight of Bishop or Thatcher. "Told you this day would come," he muttered. "I've got 2 backups of the ghost file, but if you're here it means one of them is already in motion." Thatcher raised an eyebrow. "You knew About Hollis. Albie grinned grimly. Didn't know him, but I tracked the operation. The asset extraction gone wrong. The sudden blackout in comms. That wasn't just a mission, that was a cover-up. And your friend, he wasn't just a soldier, he was the last man standing between that file and the world inside. Albie slid open an encrypted hard drive and pulled up a folder marked with a skull icon. The screen flickered before revealing a single video file. This is what they buried, Albie whispered, and what they'll kill to bury again. Thatcher leaned in. The screen showed a dark interrogation room. A shadowy figure sat across from a man bound to a chair, bruised, barely conscious. Marlowe's eyes, Hollis's face, and a voice off camera. Tell us where you hit it, or your child disappears. Some rescues aren't planned on maps, they're built on regret. The grainy footage from AL's monitor played over and over in Thatcher's head as he drove back toward Red Hollow. Hollis, battered and broken, refusing to give up the location of what they wanted. The man off camera never showed his face, only his voice, cold and commanding. But what haunted Thatcher most wasn't the violence, it was the moment Hollis looked up and whispered, "She's innocent, you don't touch her ever." That single phrase told him everything he needed to know. Hollis had planned for this. He knew they'd come not for him but for his daughter. Thatcher had seen enough covert tubes to know the signs our hadn't just resurfaced, they had rebuilt. And Marlowe's appearance, pregnant, vulnerable, searching for answers, had triggered something, a protocol, an alert, something buried deep within systems that no longer had names. And now she was in their hands. What they wanted was either still inside her, or worse, they believed she was the key to finding what Hollis hid 2 decades ago back at the airport security hub. Thatcher pulled in favors, accessed closed flight logs, surveillance records, vehicle exits. In less than 6 hours he traced the van that took Marlowe to a decommissioned military warehouse 14 miles outside the city. It was listed under a dummy logistics company, Curus Solutions, which according to Albie had been linked to Rayo N black funding during the early 2000s. Everything lined up. The trap was built and Marlowe was at the center of it. He couldn't go through official channels. Not with Rayo N involved. They had reach, influence, possibly even moles inside law enforcement. So he went underground, pulled out the burner phone he swore never to use again, dialed a number. 2 rings, then a voice answered. "Didn't think I'd hear from you again, Malowan." It was Cassandra Vass, a former recon specialist turned ghost operative. She owed him her life, and she never forgot debts. "I need extraction," he said. "One target, high risk, immediate." Cassandra didn't ask questions. She only said, "Send coordinates, I'll bring." The silence. Thatcher ended the call and looked down at Bishop. The dog sat alert, as if sensing what was coming. "You ready for one more?" he asked. Bishop's tail thumped once, then again. It was all the answer he needed as he loaded his weapon and secured the hard drive with the footage into a locked case. Thatcher's mind returned to the words in Hollis's letter: "If you find her, protect her, even from the truth." He strapped on his vest, checked his watch, and whispered to himself, "Time's up. Hollis, I'm getting her out. You don't realize how dark the world is until someone locks the door behind you." The warehouse loomed in the distance like a dead giant, wide, low, silent. Thatcher parked 2 blocks away under an overpass, the city lights barely reaching the rusted structure.